MS13. Camorra. In the shadowy underworld of Campania, particularly in Naples, one criminal organization stands out for its size and complexity: the Camorra. This enigmatic group, whose origins remain shrouded in mystery, is thought by some researchers to trace its roots back to the early 16th century, potentially evolving from the Spanish crime syndicate, the Garduna. Others believe it emerged from the ranks of Naples' impoverished thieves, the Lazzaroni, who banded together in small clans as the city grew in wealth and size. By the 1970s, the Camorra, which boasted over 100 clans and approximately 7,000 members, found itself entangled with the Sicilian mafia. This alliance led to a significant shift from cigarette smuggling to the far more lucrative drug trade, resulting in a violent internal conflict known as the Camorra Wars, which claimed around 400 lives. In recent decades, the Camorra has adapted and expanded its operations, delving into a variety of illicit activities. Notable among these is its involvement in the garbage disposal industry in Campania, which has had disastrous environmental and health consequences. The Camorra's influence extends into legitimate business through fronts used for lucrative waste management contracts, with devastating impacts on the region's soil and air quality. The group's structure is decentralized, differing from the hierarchical Cosa Nostra. Historically, leadership was elected, but now it is more familial, with a clear distinction between low members like local drug dealers and high members involved in politics and corruption. Number 12. Hell's Angels. In 1948, a group of rebels on the open road in California banded together to form an outlaw motorcycle gang that would come to be known as the Hell's Angels. From their modest beginnings, these riders, mostly Caucasian men with a penchant for Harley-Davidson motorcycles, quickly earned a reputation that transcended local lore. As the Hell's Angels expanded, they established new chapters in San Francisco in 1954 and Oakland in 1957, gradually spreading their shadowy presence across the United States. Their notoriety was fueled by a series of low-budget biker films in the 1960s and 70s, which painted a gritty picture of their lifestyle. These movies immortalized the Hell's Angels as emblematic of rebellion and danger, solidifying their image as a gang synonymous with violence. From brutal stabbings and shootings to high-profile organized crime, their violent escapades seem to punctuate their history. Despite attempts to clean up their image, the Hell's Angels have remained tangled in a web of criminal activity. The FBI continues to classify them as an outlaw motorcycle gang, partly due to their significant involvement in the illegal drug trade. Efforts to prosecute the club for racketeering have frequently failed, as the Hell's Angels manage to evade the full force of the law. Their operations, as secret as their reputation, is notorious. Yet, even as they attempt to polish their public persona, the Hell's Angels remain an indelible symbol of outlaw defiance. Number 11. Red Command. Comando Vermelho, or the Red Command, emerged from the tumultuous environment of Brazil's military dictatorship in the 1960s. Born from the union of two leftist militant groups imprisoned together, the Red Command quickly evolved from a prison-based operation into a powerful criminal syndicate in Rio de Janeiro by 1979. Their initial goal was to fund their imprisoned members through bank heists, which later facilitated dramatic prison breaks. The gang's notorious reputation is rooted in its brutal conflicts with rival gangs, particularly the Third Command. Since the 1980s, the Red Command has collaborated with Colombian cartels, growing into a massive network with members as young as 5. Their violent clashes with police and military forces are legendary, often resulting in devastating shootouts where the gang frequently emerges victorious. In a stark reminder of their brutality, the Red Command orchestrated a horrific raid in 2022, leaving 21 dead, including innocent bystanders. Their influence even extends to prison systems, where they manipulate events, such as using New Year's Eve fireworks as a distraction to stage a deadly prison break. The Red Command's reign of terror continues, illustrating the dark depths of Brazil's criminal underworld. Number 10. Black Disciples. In the shadowy underbelly of Chicago's South Side, a street gang emerged with a legacy as intricate as it is notorious. The Black Disciples, originally known as the Devil's Disciples, were born in 1958 from the collaboration of young visionaries like David Barksdale and his inner circle. Barksdale, a figure who would become known as King David, sought to consolidate power by unifying smaller gangs under the Black Disciples banner. His strategy paid off in 1966 when he founded the Black Disciples Nation, a move that skyrocketed recruitment numbers and solidified their grip on the city's streets. The alliance with the Gangster Disciples in 1969, which briefly united two of Chicago's most formidable gangs, seemed to signal a new era. However, betrayal and violence soon unraveled the fragile peace, culminating in a tragic escalation of gang warfare. The murder of 11-year-old Robert "Yummy" Sandifer in 1994, a botched execution ordered by his own gang, drew intense media scrutiny and painted the Black Disciples in a harsh light. Despite the turbulent history, the Black Disciples have endured, with a sprawling network of over 300 sets, each maintaining a grip on their own territory and a complex legacy marked by both ambition and violence. Number 9. Aryan Brotherhood. Before the 1960s, American prisons were racially segregated, but as desegregation efforts took hold, new inmate groups began to form, leading to the rise of the Aryan Brotherhood. This notorious gang is believed to have originated in San Quentin State Prison, quickly expanding its influence throughout the California prison system. By 1975, the Aryan Brotherhood had transformed into a formidable criminal organization, embroiled in violent conflicts with other prison gangs like the Liame and the Black Guerrilla family. To manage the escalating violence, California prison authorities began segregating rival gangs, and the Aryan Brotherhood was relocated to Chino Prison. Here, they solidified their hierarchical structure and grew in both number and ambition. By the 1990s, their focus shifted from racial skirmishes to more lucrative criminal enterprises, including drug trafficking, prostitution, and targeted murders. Their power surged to such an extent that they were rumored to wield greater influence than the American mafia. Today, the Aryan Brotherhood's reach extends beyond prison walls, boasting 15,000 to 20,000 members. Their extensive network makes them one of the most dangerous and expansive organized crime groups in the United States. Number 8. Crips. In the 1950s, South Central Los Angeles found itself grappling with a severe issue as several street gangs began to take root. The post-World War II era brought economic decline, rising unemployment, and racial segregation, creating fertile ground for the emergence of armed gangs. As the years progressed, Central LA became a hotspot for gang activity, transforming into a landscape dominated by outlaws and violence. In 1969, a pivotal moment occurred when Stanley "Tookie" Williams met Raymond Lee Washington. Washington, a Fremont High School student, shared his vision of uniting the fragmented gangs under a central command. Williams, from Washington High School, took charge of the West Side, while Washington led the East Side's gang, known as the Crips. Identified by their signature blue bandanas, the Crips became deeply involved in the drug trade and violence. Divided into numerous sets, the Crips also faced internal conflicts, leading to deadly infighting. Their long-standing rivalry with the Bloods, another prominent gang, is infamous, with their intertwined histories marked by relentless violence. The Crips' legacy is one of power, control, and the tragic loss of many young lives in the streets of LA. Number 7. Bloods. The Bloods, a notorious street gang, trace their origins back to the late 1960s, born out of a violent rivalry with the Crips. The story begins at Centennial High School in Compton, California, where Raymond Washington, co-founder of the Crips, launched a brutal attack on two students, Sylvester Scott and Benson Owens. This assault led Scott to form his own gang, the Piru Street Boys, while Owens established the West Piru Gang. These two groups were the first to call themselves the Bloods, a name that resonated with many non-Crip members who had already adopted the term Blood as a symbol of unity against the Crips' dominance. The rivalry between the Bloods and Crips intensified, reaching a tragic peak on March 21, 1972, when 20 Crip members viciously attacked and killed Robert Ballou Jr. outside the Hollywood Palladium. This heinous act sparked outrage, bringing the Crips even more notoriety. In response, several gangs that had been repeatedly victimized by the Crips joined forces under the leadership of the Piru Street Boys, forming an alliance that marked the official birth of the Bloods. Their mission was clear: to stand against the Crips' growing power. By the 1980s, the Bloods had evolved beyond street-level violence, becoming a significant player in the drug trade, generating immense wealth and influence. The gang, now split into two major factions, the West Coast Bloods and the United Blood Nation, or East Coast Bloods, is easily recognized by its members' signature red bandanas. Number 6. Sureños. The Sureños, also known as Sureños, Southsiders, or Sur 13, are a vast and formidable criminal network that originated in Southern California. stemming from a complex history intertwined with the Mexican Mafia, or La M.A. Initially, the Serenos were formed to bring unity and order among various Hispanic gangs, providing strength and protection in a brutal environment. The number 13, symbolizing the letter M for Mafia, became their hallmark, along with the color blue. What began as a regional alliance has since spread across the United States, notably making its presence felt on the East Coast in the late 1990s. Here, gangs like Mar Salvatrucha and 18th Street, both under the Sereno umbrella, gained infamy for their violent activities. However, the SOAR 13 sets on the East Coast operate with a degree of independence, often detached from their West Coast origins, yet still echoing the fearsome reputation of their Southern Californian counterparts. These gangs have evolved into a significant criminal force, involved in everything from drug trafficking to homicide, and continue to grow in influence and numbers, largely under the radar of law enforcement. Number 5. Latin Kings. The Latin Kings trace their origins back to the early 1950s in Chicago, where they initially united to combat racial prejudice and uplift the Latino community. Over time, they evolved into one of the most structured and powerful street organizations in the country. The Chicago-based Motherland faction is the founding group, but in 1986, a splinter cell known as the Bloodline emerged within the New York City prison system. What sets the Latin Kings apart is their rigid structure, similar to the Italian Mafia. Each chapter operates under a strict code of conduct, with members adhering to a hierarchy that mirrors organized crime syndicates like La Cosa Nostra. Under the leadership of Crecciutelli, the eastern region of the Latin Kings has been run with military-like discipline and organization. Beyond their criminal activities, the Latin Kings also have a deep-rooted cultural identity, with members immersed in a lore of rhetoric and tribal tales. These stories serve as a quasi-religious guide, promising a path from street-level poverty to enlightenment within the organization. Number 4. Vice Lord Nation. In the dark underworld of Chicago, the Vice Lord Nation stands as one of the most notorious gangs, known for its brutal history and unrelenting violence. The gang's roots trace back to 1957, when a group of African-American youths from the North Lawndale neighborhood banded together while incarcerated at the St. Charles Juvenile Correctional Facility. Led by founding member Edwin Peppo Perry, the gang quickly rose to power. Upon their release, they wasted no time recruiting others, drawing young boys into the violent gang lifestyle and clashing with rival groups. By 1964, the Vice Lords had become a significant threat, engaging in armed robberies, car thefts, assaults, and murders. Despite their reputation, they sought to clean up their image, rebranding as the Conservative Vice Lords. This move initially garnered positive attention, even securing a $275 grant from the Rockefeller Foundation in 1970. However, the funds were ultimately funneled into furthering their illegal operations. Over the decades, the Vice Lords have evolved into a more sophisticated organization, branching into non-violent crimes like mortgage fraud, credit card scams, and money laundering. Today, the gang operates in 74 cities across 28 states, with an estimated 30,000 to 35,000 members nationwide. Despite their attempts to reform, the Vice Lords remain deeply entrenched in criminal activity, a powerful force in the American gang landscape. Number 3. Mexican Mafia. The Mexican Mafia, known as La M, is one of the most notorious criminal organizations in the United States. Founded in 1957 by Luis Flores at the Duell Vocational Institution in California, the gang initially formed as a protective group for Hispanic inmates in the state's prison system. However, it quickly evolved into a powerful criminal enterprise,